And we're live. Welcome back to WeDeyCode. Let's see, what do we have in store for today? So today we're actually going to be focusing on the setup of your development environment. And what's a development environment? Everyone who's building software needs to configure their laptop and install certain software that would allow them to build their applications. So for web development, more specifically front-end web development, as of now, we're just focusing on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript development. So we'll be installing just the necessary tools that are needed for that. And thankfully, there aren't too many of them. So let's see. Okay, so the first thing you need to be aware of is that you don't actually need a high spec laptop in order to write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. For the purpose of this series, we'll actually just be focusing on very basic applications, websites that don't need you to render too much on your machine. All you need is a modern day laptop that has the ability to run at least your browser. If you can run Google Chrome, if you can run Firefox or Brave browser, that's good. We're not going to be using Internet Explorer or Safari for any reason. Just Google Chrome, Firefox, and Mozilla or Brave browser. I'm using Google Chrome over here, and apart from a modern laptop or a good enough laptop, what you need is a browser. That's the second thing, and the third thing is an editor. So in the editor, that's where we'll actually be writing your code. So the editor we'll be using would also be an IDE. An IDE is an integrated development environment. So we'll be using Visual Studio VS Code. So that's Visual Studio Code from Microsoft. VS Code is an open source application that allows you to build different kinds of software. So an IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. What an IDE allows you to do is to build your software using all the tools and functionalities you need. They usually come pre-built with the IDE. And many IDEs are specific to some language or to some kind of development environment. So VS Code is actually not tied to any specific language. Here you can see they're using JavaScript, but you could also use Java while developing VS Code applications. You can use Python, you can use Golang, and much more. And in order to customize it to your specific language, you can add these extensions, like you can see here on the left side. And in here on the right is where you have your editor. And at the bottom is a terminal. So we'll get to the terminal eventually, and that's really where you can execute commands that will let your computer know this is what you should do with your code. So let's get right into the downloads. First thing you need to do is to create a download. Is to download the application. So it comes in three main distributions. There's one for Mac OS. There's an installer for Windows, 64 bits, and there's an installer for 64-bit Linux systems. That comes in deb and RPM. So I'm sure there will be much more. Yeah, there are also 32 bits versions, and there's also ARM for anyone who has that, who uses that. So I already have VS Code, so you can just go ahead and click download, click the button that best matches your need. And once you do that, then you just open the VS Code application. Once it's done installing, we open VS Code. Yes. Okay, so now when I have my application running, you should see on the right here, this is our file explorer. Here's our search tool. Here's our source control, which just allows you to track changes in your application. Here's your runner/debugger, and then you also have extensions. So for different things you do, let's say if someone's a Python developer, you can have extensions for Python and so on and so forth. For us, let's say since we're using HTML, let's see what's out there. Okay, so there are all sort of different tools you could use, and it's up to you to install whatever you feel would be helpful. So we won't be needing this. What's more important is the file explorer on the left here. So what we're going to do is to open a folder, and I'm just doing this on my desktop. Then I'm going to say new folder, and let's call it VSCode sample. And once I open this, now VSCode will create a workspace that is located at this file path. So anything you're developing will be within this folder. So here I can go ahead and create another folder, right? I could just call it test. I could create another folder inside of that. Let's say HTML. At the roots here, I could create something called example.html, and so on and so forth. So in here, I could, start writing some HTML. Let's close this, and you can see that I'm only writing some of the code. It's helping me complete the rest. So that's the beauty of using an IDE. So if you say here, we have a body, and in our body we have h1. So WeDeyCode, and then in h2 our heading, and all this will be explained later in the future. So we'll say become a front-end pro. Cool. So now that we've written this, what can we do about it? Well, in our head, we could also do something called a script, which will be explained later. So I've explained that JavaScript, I've given an overview that we can use some JavaScript in building our applications. So usually you can have functions. So let's say we have one, let's say hello, and all it does is to just alert hello. Okay, so we're not necessarily going to use this, but I just want to show how with an IDE like VS Code, we're taking advantage of so much features. Over here, you can see that there's the .html extension. That VS Code reads that when it sees a file with this extension, it knows that okay, you're trying to build a web page. So it automatically comes up with this styling for you. So you can see it's color coded. Everything isn't just black and white. There's blue here, there's yellow, and over here at the bottom, you can see that you can select different settings to highlight the syntax of your application. So you can see that if I were to change this from HTML, let's say I change to F#, all of a sudden everything looks strange. If I were to change it to C++, again everything looks strange because this is not meant to be C++. So I'll just select auto detect, and it knows that it's HTML. This is the logo that it uses for HTML. And you can see that here there's also let me close this. There's also a path to let you see where you are in the code. So here I'm in the say hello function. For it to move out, I'm in the script. For it to move here, I'm HTML body h2. Okay, so how do we run this code? Let's see. So on my desktop, I have VS Code sample that we created, and you can see this folder. So now we have the HTML file that we just made. So let's double click that, and voila, you can see the code that we wrote just in here. So that's the introduction to getting your development environment set up. Next, we'll be going into the fundamentals of HTML, and see you next time. But before then, please make sure you like, subscribe, and feel free to ask any questions you have in the comments, or also on our Twitter at WeDeyCode. That's in the description, and make sure to share this with all your friends. Have a nice day. Bye.